waiting for everybody's audio to connect.
Well, good.
Alrighty. I'm gonna call this special meeting of the Conservation Commission of, what is today? February 6th to order at 7:01. And this meeting has a single purpose, which is to hear and discuss the presentation about dam safety regulatory program that Larabe Afzal, so sorry,
You got it.
is going to be presenting. She's a civil engineer from DEEP. And just a couple of housekeeping pieces for everyone. Please be sure to put your computer and your Zoom instance on mute. And if for some reason we get disconnected, I do not anticipate that. Just wait 30 minutes and we'll restart the Zoom meeting. That's in accordance with the statute. And we'll have an extensive Q&A. We've left a lot of time for Q&A at the end. So if you can hold your questions while Larabe is giving the presentation, that would be great. If you want to put them in the chat, we'd love to ask them at the end through the chat. So if you want to put them in the chat while the presentation is going, that's perfectly fine. But if you'd rather not and you'd prefer to ask your question in person, then by all means, just wait till the end of the presentation and we move over to the Q&A. And I'm going to pop the football over to Wendy Murphy, who is sort of the person who was the genesis for this whole discussion and now this program that DEEP is delivering. Go on, Wendy.
That's what we're going to find out.
Are you going to be able to hear me? Because my Zoom is not working.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, why don't I just say what I'm going to say and maybe I'll figure it out. I had it on before, but now it won't play. So I'm going to say, first of all, good evening to everybody. And tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Larabe Afzal. Larabe is a civil engineer with the state's dam safety program. Dam safety operates within the Bureau of Water Protection and Land Reuse, which is in turn part of the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. Before she begins, I want to give a shout out to the varied work of DEEP for those of you who don't serve on town boards and may not know who and what they are. Before 1970, neither the federal government nor state governments were empowered or staffed to protect our air, water, wildlife, or other natural resources. Pollution, toxic chemicals, industrial waste, endangered species were problems that went unnoticed for lack of regulation or enforcement. Then came Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, and a couple of highly publicized environmental disasters in the late 60s. It became impossible to look away any longer. Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson forced the issue onto the national stage by calling on Americans to demonstrate their commitment to the environment by celebrating what he called Earth Day on a day in April 1970. Some 20 million Americans did just that in cities and small towns across the country. With that endorsement, the U.S. government took the critical next step of authorizing the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and passed the first effective laws relating to clean air and water. Connecticut's legislature followed almost immediately by creating the Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection. The agency started small with an annual budget of $7 million and 491 full-time employees. In the 45 years since then, the Connecticut legislature has given DEEP more responsibilities. As a result, the agency now employs nearly 1,000 full-time and seasonal employees and operates with an annual budget of roughly $170 million. And they are very busy people, whether out in the field in a lab testing water quality samples, running state parks, checking the effects of oil spills, looking after fish and wildlife, advising local commissioners on wetlands issues. What Larabe will now show us is what her team does to keep Connecticut a safe and healthy place. But what you may be wondering prompted the Conservation Commission to ask in particular for a tutorial on dam safety. It's pretty simple. Between the increasing effects of climate change and alterations in land use patterns, we think it may be time to reevaluate how we live in harmony with streams and ponds and dams. Up to the 20th century, the vast watershed of the Housatonic Valley drained thousands of acres of land, rarely disturbing the natural landscape. Springs gushed from hidden seeps, the rains fell with some predictability, and snow melt all flowed downhill to empty into the Housatonic's mainstream and Long Island Sound. Open pastures, thirsty forests, and farm fields absorbed most of what fell before it traveled very far. Flooding, when it occurred, was relatively harmless. Today, however, we experience more sudden and powerful rainstorms, and our lands present a different profile. Hills are still steep, but they are interrupted by paved roads, impervious driveways, rooftops, manicured lawns, and compacted and disturbed soils. Heavy rainfalls are not absorbed quickly, becoming fast-moving floods. Extreme precipitation events have risen by nearly 60%, according to some resources, since the 1950s. Last August, the town of Oxford experienced some 14 inches of rainfall in less than 24 hours, and the flooding that resulted took 3 lives and caused enormous damage to the community and infrastructure. So we want to know from Laryab and her colleagues, and her former colleague, her current colleagues, who will join her for our Q&A following, if there are things Kent's commissions and its dam owners can do to become better prepared for these hazards in the future. And with that, I turn the program over to our speaker, and I hope to get back on Zoom myself. So go ahead, Aria.
Good evening, everyone. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yep.
So my name is Laryab Afzal. I'm a civil engineer too in the dam safety program. And with me today is Anna Laskin. She is our supervising civil engineer, and Akila Mirza. She is a civil engineer too in the program as well. And I'm here today to give you some background on our program and how we are ensuring the safety of dams in the state of Connecticut. So to start off, I just want to give a little bit of a background on what is considered a dam in our statutory requirements. So a dam is a barrier of any kind whatsoever which is capable of impounding or controlling the flow of water, including but not limited to stormwater retention or detention dams, flood control structures, dikes, and even incompletely breached dams. So we are regulating all of these structures that are capable of impounding and controlling the flow of water. So in order to track all of these dams in the state, we use our Access database, and this is how we are keeping track of dams and their information. Each dam has a unique CT dam ID number. You can think of this as like a unique identifier number. Each dam also has a name and a hazard classification, and then a condition of the dam. So to the right, you can see a screenshot of our database and how it has different information that we store here, such as physical data and owners and operators. Also on our website, we have a GIS mapper, and this GIS mapper showcases all known dams in the state of Connecticut. So you can zoom into the town of Kent and see where dams are located. We regulate roughly 4,800 dams in the state, and the town of Kent, there are many A hazard class and BB hazard class dams, and I will get into what that means a little bit later on. So now I'm going to talk about the question that's on everyone's mind, and that is, what is the relationship between, these heavier rainstorms and the capacity of dams, and what goes on with dams as we are facing more severe climate changes? So firstly, I want to talk about flood control dams. These dams are typically dry and are constructed to hold back flood waters when it comes to the impacts of, like a storm. And there are two pieces of information that are really important to us. And one is the hazard classification of a dam, and the other is the condition of a dam. And it is the dam owner's responsibility to maintain their dams in a safe condition to prevent the loss of life or damage to properties. Also, a dam owner is financially responsible for damages caused by their dam failing. So our program is currently allowing for the construction of only flood control structures. We are not approving the construction of new dams unless they are for flood water storage. And most existing dams in the state are run-of-the-river dams, so they do not provide flood water storage. So I've mentioned this word before, so dam hazard classification. So now we'll take a look at what a dam hazard classification is. It's basically a rating that we give the dam, and it can range from AA, being negligible hazard, to a class C dam, which is a high hazard class dam. Dam hazard classifications are based off of what is located downstream of the dam. So the size of the impoundment does not matter here. We are taking a look at what would get impacted if the dam fills, so downstream of the dam. The highest rating that we have here in Kent for dams is BB. These are moderate hazard potential dams, and if these dams were to fail, there would be damage to normally unoccupied storage structures, damage to paved local roadways, moderate economic loss, and these dams get inspected every 7 years. Another hazard classification that dams in Kent have is AA. These are negligible hazard potential dams. There is no measurable damage if these dams fail. And these dams are registered with our program or need to be registered with our program. But the inspection frequency should be determined by the municipality. I was also made aware that there are fire ponds or dry hydrants in Kent. So the dam safety program does not regulate dugout ponds or storage below the existing grade. So if these if these are stormwater storage berms, then the inspection frequency or who regulates the dam would depend on the hazard classification. I'm gonna go to the next slide. So now the second key component to ensuring that dams are stable in a major storm event is the condition of the dams. And dams generally deteriorate over time. And I have a photograph here showing some of the deterioration aspects that could take place in a dam, such as piping issues, erosion, cracking, um, lowering of areas in the dam crest. So the conditions of a dam can range from, good all the way to poor and unsatisfactory. And we recommend that dam owners regularly inspect their dams, based off of their hazard classification and inspection frequency to make sure that their dams are in compliance and are in a good condition. So I've mentioned this a little bit earlier, but dams must be registered with our program, and we add them to our inventory list, and that's basically how we're keeping track of dams. This next slide does not apply to Kent, but we ask that owners of a high and significant
Larabe, I think we lost your audio. Anna, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, well, I can take over while Larry is trying to reconnect.
Okay.
Thank you.
So as Larry has mentioned, this situation doesn't necessarily apply to the town of Kent, but this is one of the statutory requirements for the high and significant hazard potential dams to file a notice of high hazard dam or significant hazard dam on the municipal records. Just to notify, the all future property owners of the fact that there is a
Hello?
high
Can you guys hear
Hi,
me
Larry.
again?
Yes, we can hear you, Larry. I took over for a second, but if your connection is back,
Can you
please
guys hear me?
continue. Yes, we can.
Yes, Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sorry about that. I think my computer just kicked me off. So I'll go to present mode again. Do you mind sharing my screen again, Melissa?
We see your screen.
Oh, okay. All right.
Perfect.
That sounds good. I'm sorry about that. I think our system just locked me out. So as I was mentioning, this does not apply to Kent, but owners of a high and significant hazard dam are required to file a notice with the municipal land records. And now, so an important part of us ensuring that dam owners are maintaining their dams and are in compliance with our regulations is by asking dam owners to complete regulatory inspections. We do this task by sending out notices of required inspection, also known as NORI for short, to dam owners. So each year, generally by January 15, our program sends out these notices of required inspection to dam owners, asking them to inspect their dam within that year. An example of this would be if someone owns a sea hazard class dam and the dam was last inspected in 2022, the dam owner would receive a NORI or notice of required inspection in 2024. So the NORI would follow a 2-year frequency for a high hazard class dam. And just wanted to mention an example. So once we ask dam owners to inspect their dams, and once they receive this notice of required inspection, they must hire a professional engineer to inspect their dam. That our program, the dam safety program, does not do these inspections. We ask that dam owners hire a professional engineers and that their professional engineers submit the inspection report to us. So the professional engineer that the dam owner hires will assess the condition of the dam and give it a hazard classification if one already does not exist. And it is the professional engineer's job to thoroughly inspect the dam. They will take pictures of the dam. And once the dam has been inspected by the engineer will then give feedback on recommendations on what should be done on the dam for dam repair. And that is what we are looking for. So once that inspection report is submitted back to us, this is the letter we are sending out. It's kind of like a byproduct of the inspection report, and it is called the engineering and maintenance work letter. So when this is submitted to us, we are looking to see which repairs the engineer who inspected the dam is making. And we are then issuing this letter asking the dam owner to please make repairs to the dam, and we give the dam owners 30 days once this letter is issued to respond to us with a schedule for dam repairs. All right. Another way that we are ensuring and staying prepared for dam flood emergencies is by having the owners of B and C. So this is high and significant hazard potential dams submit an emergency action plan. So this document has two components to it. One is the procedure that will take place in case there was a dam failure, and the other one is inundation mapping, which the consulting engineer will put together, and this will showcase what would happen potentially if the dam fails. So once they model the dam breach, they will put together a list of roads and residences which might be impacted by the dam failure or dam breach, and then they submit this information to us. Now, this does not apply to the town of Kent because we do not know of any C or B hazard class dams in this town. All right. So once the engineering and maintenance work letter, which was, a byproduct of the inspection report, is submitted to us and the dam owner wants to make repairs, well, then in most cases, there might be some permitting involved to make the repairs. We have two types of permits in our program. One is general permits and the other one is individual permits, and I'll talk about each. So the general permits are providing a quick access or quick authorization for minor dam related activities which have only minimal environmental impacts. And we have three types of general permits. The GP14 is a non-filing category. Then we have a filing only category, which is GP15, and approval of filing category, which is GP16. So what does this mean? What if the dam owner, so it means that if a dam owner is making repairs to the dam, which an activity falls under the GP14, they do not need to notify us. They can just send us the notice to municipality. For the GP15, it depends on the activity. Sometimes for GP15, we want to know if the dam owner is making repairs, but sometimes professional engineering oversight is required and sometimes it is not. And then prior approval is required from our program if the dam owner is doing any activities which fall under the GP16. So I'll give an example. So say there was a storm event and a dam owner is replacing 10 square yards of missing riprap. Well, this is a GP14, but now if the dam owner is replacing up to 25 square yards of missing riprap, that would fall under a GP15. If we bump up that number again to 75 square yards of missing riprap being replaced, well, then that is a GP15, but a GP15 that requires engineering oversight. And now if we bump up that number again to 150 square yards of riprap being replaced, well, now this requires approval from our program and engineering oversight is needed. So the second component of our permitting process is the individual permit. So the individual permits are used when the project does not fit any of the general permit categories, and it is required prior to initiating substantial repairs or alterations or removal of higher hazard class dams. And this permit is usually required for larger scale projects, and each general permit or the individual permit have their own set of submission requirements, and those can be found on our website. I've provided a link here. It's right here. We also offer pre-application meetings. So if a dam owner is unsure of which permitting path they need to take, they can set up a pre-application meeting with us. And for the dams in Kent, some of the BB hazard class dams or BB hazard class dams and A hazard class dams can be removed under a general permit. Another permitting aspect to our program is emergency authorization. So let's say there was a dam failure due to a major storm event and a road has been washed out, or there are emergency repairs that need to take place right away. Well, then we do authorize emergency, we have emergency authorizations, and we've had a record number of emergency authorizations in 2024. And to the right here, you can see a picture of Raider Pond Dam in Woodbury. This is Transylvania Road. It was washed out after the August storm events. This is from last year. So a little relationship about the dam safety permits and the local inland wetland permitting. So when an applicant is applying for a dam safety permit, whether it is a general permit or an individual permit, they do not need to go through local inland wetland permitting because the dam safety permit would cover them, and we will check, we will submit the application to our Land and Water Resources Group, which will check for wetland impact area maps. And so a dam owner would not need to go through a local inland wetland permitting when they are submitting a dam safety permit for repairs. I also want to talk about transfer of ownerships and property disclosure forms. So when someone who has a dam on their property is selling their property, they do need to disclose that there is a dam on their property, and that could be found on this link I provided under the property disclosure form. And then we also want an email sent to our program referring to, ownership change, so the name of the new owner, their contact number, and we want to stay up to date on ownership changes for dams. All right, so funding for dam repairs or removal. So our program does not provide funding for dam removals or repairs, but we do refer dam owners to programs which may provide grants for removal of dams. One of them is our fisheries department, and there might be some grants available if the area where the dam is located is accessible to migratory fish. Save the Sound might also provide some grants for dam removal. And the third one is Trout Unlimited. And I've provided links at the end. But our program generally does not provide funding for dam removals or repairs. Another thing we do not regulate is beaver activities. This is our wildlife group. We do not regulate anything that has to do with beavers or beaver activities. I've provided a screenshot of what our website looks like and a link to our webpage. And then here's some helpful links I want to talk about. So again, our website, our GIS mapper, our email, phone number, a link to our dam registration and recordation page, a link to the emergency action plan page, our dam inspections page, permitting page, pre-application assistance, and permitting, and a list of professional engineers that dam owners can hire. And they do not have to hire an engineer from this list, but just if they want a reference, Save the Sound contact to see if there's funding available for dam removals, our fisheries contact, and where dam owners can go if there are beaver activities, or where anyone can go to report beaver activities. And that is it. Should I stop sharing? Maybe I'll stop sharing. Okay.
Thanks,
Oh,
Lorraine.
I can't. Thank you.
So I actually posted a question in the chat, but it was more of a housekeeping. I assume you'll share the presentation with the commission and we can share it out to folks who came to the meeting if they're interested.
Yes.
With all the resources on that last slide. That's great. Thank you very much. So we'll move into questions. If folks want to just come off mute, or if they want to pop them in the chat, we can ask those questions in the chat. I gotta make trying to see all the panes. So if you have a question, by all means, come off mute because I can't see all of the panes at one time. And just say that you have a question or ask your question. Wendy, I know that you had a couple of questions that you asked via email. Do you want to sort of start us off? You're on
I
mute.
think Wendy, you're on mute.
Here,
There you
okay,
go.
you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
my overall response, and it was, this information is terrific, but are any towns really policing this? I don't know a single real estate agent who knows this in Kent, that they should, if they're selling a property, that they should make sure that all this information is passed on. We have some 40, I forget, 44 listed ponds in Kent, and about maybe 25% of them don't even seem to have a classification. It just seems like there's a huge gap between the ideal arrangement from the point of view of your office and what is actually practiced. I mean, is Kent different from other places? Are some towns very scrupulous about all this? Because I don't think, no offense to anybody, I just don't think we know about these things, and consequently, we've never followed them. And I don't know, how do other people feel?
So we do have some towns that actually own dams themselves, and we have like the selectmen or the select woman as the contact person. So they might be regulating or helping us keep track of the dams in their towns a little bit more. And as we come across dams that are not registered, we do send out registration forms. Where as we come across dams, we're asking the property owners, please register their dam. And we're regularly asking people based off of the inspection frequency to inspect the dams. And I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Yes, I can add to this, Larry. But thank you for your question. I think it's a great question. And as if I understood you correctly, you were specifically referring to the property condition report, right? That Larry has shared in her presentation. So the property disclosure report is part of every single real estate transaction. So the realtors, maybe the newer realtors, they may not be aware of the fact that the information or the question on dams, the questions on dams are included in the property disclosure report, but they are there. There are two questions related to dams. One question, by law, the seller of the property is required to disclose information about a dam located on the property that they're about to sell or that they are listing for sale. And at the very end of the form, we specifically advocated to provide the DEP dam safety contact information for the prospective property buyers to contact DEP to see what regulatory requirements and obligations they're going to have with the state if they end up purchasing a property containing a dam.
Thanks, Anna. And I just recently closed on my house sale, and I actually remember those boxes on the disclosure, the property disclosure paperwork.
Yes, and so this is a fairly new change. I don't remember, Larry, which year was it updated, 2020 or 2021? But we did start getting many phone calls from the prospective property buyers with questions on them. So they really want to understand and want to know ahead of time before they end up, purchasing a property. What their responsibility is going to be and what kind of financial obligation and what kind of regulatory requirements are going to apply to the property.
Just as a follow-up, and I see Connie, you have your hand up, and we have a question in the chat. Do you get any sense, and this is very subjective, that some property owners may not even understand or know that they have a dam on their property?
It's very unlikely. I think by this time we've reached out one way or another to every single known property owner, whose property contains a dam. you know, there are, as Larry has mentioned, there are 5 hazard classifications of dams in the state of Connecticut, ranging from AA to A, B, 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 and C. So the regulatory requirements differ depending on the hazard classification of the dam. So even the dam owners of the negligible hazard potential class dams, AA dams, they still have, you know, at least one regulatory requirement with the state. They need to submit a dam registration form to let the state know that there is a dam on their property. So, you know, we reached out to all known property owners with at least that request. So they should know that there is a dam on their property. And we keep on finding new dams in the state. We believe that we know of all higher hazard potential dams in the state, but smaller dams, AA dams, we keep on finding them, and different groups within DEP help us with this task. So, for example, there are water monitoring group. There are water monitoring groups, and when when those groups are out in the field doing like water sampling, they may come across a structure that they don't necessarily see on our GIS viewer that Larry had talked about. So they would let us know that, by the way, there is this dam, we don't see it in your GIS. Make sure, you know, reach out to the property owner and ask them to, you know, provide information on the dam. And we do that. We find this location on GIS. We do property ownership research. We reach out to the owner of the property and we send them a request to register the dam. Once the dam registration form is submitted, we process the information and we assign a hazard classification to the dam. And depending on the hazard classification, we reach out again with further regulatory requirements. Always say that this dam is going to be classified as a negligible hazard potential AA class dam, and the dam will fall under the jurisdiction of the municipality where the dam is located. And we always try to copy on our correspondence at least the Inland Wetland Commission or Planning and Zoning Commission, depending on the municipality. So we let the municipality know that there is this situation so that you are aware. We try to keep the municipalities in the loop.
Great, that's very helpful. We're gonna go, I see 2 hands up, but we're gonna ask the question in the chat. So we go in order. How are dams along public roads maintained, especially storm hazards?
I think that depends on who owns the dam, whether it is the town who owns the dam or if it's a private property owner, and it depends on the hazard classification. So, you know, having the dam inspected frequently, depending on the inspection frequency, is really important. And then we are asking dam owners to make repairs to their dam based off of the engineering and maintenance request letter. So we're continuously asking dam owners to, you know, inspect their dams, make sure they're in a good condition, and then, you know, that they're making repairs to these dams.
Great.
So I think that it's important to understand that it is the dam owner's responsibility to maintain their structure in a safe condition to prevent the loss of life and damage to the property located downstream in case of a dam failure. So, you know, if it is a state-owned dam, yes, it's the state's responsibility. DEP is the agency that owns almost 300 dams. So we have a state dams program whom we consider dam owner, state dam owner. So we are the program that regulates both state and municipal and I guess privately owned dams.
Thank you. Connie, go ahead with your question.
Sure. Thanks, Jean. Excuse me. First off, I just want to thank you from Connecticut Deep for your audience tonight. I mean, it's amazing that you've made this time to connect with us, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm working, among other things, with the town on Sustainable CT, which you've likely heard of. And this presentation is roughly related to watershed management and healthy watersheds. And while I really appreciate the wisdom of classifying dams with respect to their prospective damage and risk to human safety, I was wondering, for those of us or people who are in charge of Class AA dams that really don't have a high level of risk, with respect to property damage or human safety, if there's still educational materials or any direction that you can point people in terms of the healthy maintenance of their dams and just the impact generally of dams on the watershed. I know that's a really broad question, but maybe there's some resources that you might be able to, think of or to provide to us after the fact.
So there are no regulatory requirements from our program for AA hazard class dams. Anna, did you want to add on to that?
So there is a guidance. I don't remember exactly what it's called, Larry, but maybe you can go to our webpage. Guidance on guidance for dam owners for maintaining the dams. It's a pretty old document, but it's still applicable. So that guidance document will talk about different situations that you can come across at the dams. It will guide you to keep the vegetation, the woody vegetation off of the dam embankment, constantly cut and maintain to prevent from to prevent larger trees to grow on dam embankments. There is a link to that guidance document on our webpage.
Great,
I'm not sure if that's what the question was.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I can
Heidi.
I can find that and send that to maybe Melissa
Yeah.
or Wendy to share forward.
Yeah, that would
That'd
be
be
great.
great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Heidi,
we
do you wanna-
actually have multiple copies of that guidance book in the office on paper. That is left from the time when we were still producing a lot of paper, and most of the guidance documents are online now. So if the town of Kent is specifically interested in that kind of documentation, to have it in paper in your town library or somewhere in the inland wetland office, we can provide you with a couple of copies of that guidance document.
We'll find it on your website.
Yeah, and
Yes,
honestly,
it is on the website. I
Okay.
cannot believe I don't remember the name.
That's okay. I
Thanks
think
for the
what you
conservation
gave us,
commitment.
we'll be able to find it.
Yeah.
Heidi Kunick, and I know I botched your last name, but
That's
Heidi,
okay.
go
That's
ahead.
okay. Yeah, it's Heidi Koenig.
Koenig.
First, thank you so much for your presentation this evening, which has really made me think about things that I haven't really thought about before. But more specifically, it's made me think about the way when someone wants to build a new dam, what that permitting process is, and what sort of assessment is happening in terms of the impact to flora and fauna. So when a dam is built, it has all sorts of impacts on the migratory pathways, on the fragmentation of habitat, myriad impacts on the health of our ecosystem. It doesn't sound like an assessment is done on how that dam would impact that community. Do I understand that correctly? Because for me, that seems short-sighted. Which is not your issue, but it's just something that I'm thinking about now, and how that might change if that's true.
I believe we're not
So-
allowing for, oh, go ahead, Anna.
Go ahead, Larry. Yes, finish your thought and then
Alright.
I'll add to what you say. Mhm.
I believe we're no longer permitting the creation of more dams unless they are for flood protection. And that's, you know, if an area is prone to flooding and they want to create a dry dam. So it's basically a dry dam. It's not going to store water. It might be a berm or a dike to hold back flood waters. But other than that, I don't think we're allowing for the construction of new dams at this time.
That is correct. And for the existing dams, it is our statutory requirement to review every single proposal, whether it's just a simple repair or maintenance or reconstruction, rehabilitation for the existing structures. I mean, it is our statutory requirement to review the permit applications for both the structural soundness as well as an environmental impact. So the dam safety program consists of 4 civil engineers, and we mostly do cover that structural component of our statutes. However, every single dam safety permit application is also reviewed by multiple environmental groups within the department for wetland impact, any type of environmental impact, wildlife division gets involved, fisheries division, remediation, water quality group. So there are multiple groups working at the same time on every single dam safety proposal.
Thank
But
you.
Larry is correct. Yes,
That's great.
yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Heidi. So we have another few more questions in the chat. Are the inspections in Kent done at the required intervals? And if an inspection is not done at the required time, what's your follow-up? And should the local inland wetlands commission be notified by you if the owner doesn't act? And what if the owner can't afford a repair? So I guess we'll start with are the inspections in Kent done at the required intervals?
We'll have to look into this for each dam. If the dam owner is not regularly inspecting their dam and we're sending out the notice of required inspection and we're not hearing anything back, then we do send out 2 forms. One is the notice of non-compliance and a notice of violation. So we do have these 2 forms that might go out to the dam owner saying, you know, you were not following up with us. And I believe that we do loop in, it might be the town selectman or the mayor of the city and the local inland wetlands as well.
Yes, so the notices that Larry was talking about, they are the first 2 steps in the DEP formal enforcement process. So when we don't hear from a dam owner in response to the notice of required inspection, we do generate a notice of non-compliance. And at that time already, we definitely notify the Inland Wetland Commission, and a copy of the notice goes to the first selectman's office, just to get the municipal attention. And we, I guess Larry said that there are no dams of a higher hazard than Kent, right? The BB
Yes,
hazard
only
is the
BB.
highest hazard. So
So
those
those are
dams need
inspected
to be
every 7
inspected
years.
every 7 years. You know, we can always run a query in Access database and see what dams are out of compliance with the regulatory inspection regulation. I guess if there is specific interest on that kind of information, we can always provide that.
And is there, when you talk about enforcement, so that's sort of the beginning of the process, is there a further enforcement if somebody is just not?
Yes, so the notice of non-compliance is the first step. So we will give the dam owner a certain number of days, let's say 30 or 60 days, depending on the condition of the dam. So if the dam owner doesn't respond, we elevate it to the notice of violation. And the next step is either consent order or administrative order, which may include civil penalties.
Okay, and
So those civil penalties, they may be pretty high according to again, to the Connecticut general statutes. You know, for environmental violations, it can be $1,000 per violation per day. So, you know, those penalties are pretty significant. So it's in the dam owner's best interest to invest this money rather into the maintenance and repair of their dam rather than, you know,
and,
paying civil penalties.
the last part of that question was, what if the owner can't afford a repair?
Dam owners are liable for their dam and the damages that might be caused. Say if that dam is not being maintained due to dam failure. The dam owner can look into dam removal options by contacting, you know, Save the Sound, which is a nonprofit organization, Trout Unlimited. See if that dam is accessible to migratory fish, then they can reach out to our fisheries department. But the dam safety program does not offer any kind of grants for repairs to a dam or for dam removals. That's the responsibility of the dam owner. So the
Okay.
liability is still on the dam owner.
Great. And Wendy put in the chat, I have a list dated October 2024, which shows some 40 dams, but several are neither registered nor named. Who should investigate this to fill in the name of the owner and hazard classification?
Wendy, you can send this list to us, and then we can reach out to the dam owners. We'll have to do our own property research to see who owns these dams, and then we'll send out the form, which is called dam registration form, and a cover letter, which will ask, you know, these dam owners to please register their dam with our program. So if you could get that over to us, then, you know, we could do our property research and ask those dam owners to register those dams with us.
Did you have a follow-up, Wendy?
And
Yeah, I just thought I would say, I think this list, it's only of dams and it's dams all over the state. I figured this came from you. I got it on the internet. Just, I have one page. It just happens to show Kent and Killingly and Hebron, some section of some statewide list. I figured that was yours. And every pond or dam has a number, but there's no information as to who owns it, just called no name, like 6826 and 6827.
Oh, okay. I think, Anna, this is coming from the NORI list that we posted, the notice of required inspection. So when we do send out that notice of required inspection, sometimes a dam might be in our system. The dam is being inspected. We have the owner, but the dam has never been registered with us because the registration requirement came a little bit later on. So when we do send out that notice of required inspection, we'll follow up saying, hey, please also, you know, while you're inspecting the dam, also register your dam with our program. So I think that list might have come from our website that we posted. That is the 2024, it might have been, it was posted in 2024, I believe. Actually this year. And I think that might be the list, the NORI, I think it's the NORI list.
Thank you.
so the NORI list that Laraib is talking about, this is a list of notices of required inspections that we, again, are required by regulation to send before January 15th in any given calendar year to notify the dam owners that their dams are due for a regulatory inspection during this calendar year. So we just sent a list, we just sent I believe around 280 notices of required inspections to the dam owners in the state whose dams are going to be due for inspection this calendar year. So I'm not sure the 2024 list with 40 dams. I'm not sure what that list is about. But we can regenerate a list of dams for the town of Kent. Again, we'll need to run a query in our Access database if you want to see a list of all dams that we have in the town of Kent with showing their hazard classification condition, the last year they were inspected and things like that, the ownership information.
It just strikes me that any town, if it's gonna take this issue seriously, ought to have such a list. And,
And so we constantly get requests from the municipalities. They want to know what dams are there in their municipality, what the condition of the dam, what the hazard classification. So we get those requests from various municipalities on a regular basis.
Thanks. Another question in regard to the photo you showed earlier of a recent failed dam, what condition and class was that dam? Are classes and conditions being reconsidered as we have more extreme rain events and flooding impacts?
For the emergency authorization photo that I showed you to the August storm event that we had last year, the dam did not fail over there. The road overtopped because of the storm event, and that Raider Pond Dam is owned by the town of Woodbury, and that dam actually is in unsatisfactory condition. It's a Class BB hazard dam, but the road overtopped. The dam did not fail. And then we are not looking into reclassifying dams. The dam hazard classification would change if there was another development downstream of the dam. Let's say that now there's a main road downstream of the dam, or houses were developed downstream of the dam. So the hazard classification of the dam comes from what is located downstream of the dam, not the size of the impoundment. And there are not many flood control structures in the state anyways. They're mostly run of the river dams, so input would equal output for these dams.
Oh, okay.
So in the inspection reports that the dam owners are required to submit in response to the notice of required inspection, an engineer would comment in the hazard reclassification section if they believe that the dam needs to be reclassified to either higher hazard potential class or lower, depending on the change in the downstream land use and topography in the most recent years, because in 7 years, many things can change downstream. And it becomes the engineer's responsibility to provide this information to us and the justification on what they believe the hazard classification of the dam that they've inspected should be. So in response to that information, we do reclassify dams. Yes, we do change hazard classification. It's also like an ongoing process.
All right. Well, I don't see any more hands up. Gonna do an.
So I want to mention that Aquila did share a link to our inspection guidance document, our guidance document for inspecting and maintaining dams. It's in the chat.
Great. Thanks for that mention. And I'm just scanning our virtual room one more time. I don't see any more hands up. So I'm gonna sort of close us out here. Thank you. As a former state employee, I used to work for DPH, and having, is it 3 or 4 deep folks on tonight, that shows commitment, and I'm impressed and very grateful for
Thank you.
for you all taking your Thursday nights to come to town virtually. You're welcome to come anytime in real life. We'd love to give you a tour. But thanks again for all this information. It's information that I certainly had not thought a lot about. And thanks to Wendy for bringing this to our attention. And I think everybody's much more informed than they were 1 hour ago. So I, again, very grateful, and we'll have the recording up probably by tomorrow, and Melissa has the slide deck from you, and we'll put that in our meeting folder for anybody who wants to access it. And, you know, very much appreciate it. You guys did a great job, and hopefully maybe this will bring light to other towns who want to have this information shared. Very much
Absolutely, and
appreciated.
thank you for organizing
thank
this
you.
presentation and for your questions, and thank you for showing interest in our program, and feel free to reach out to the dam safety program with any questions, and if we need to follow up on anything that was being discussed during this meeting, we'll be happy to provide you more information on that.
Great, thank you. And with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:01. I think Melissa will.
Thank you, everyone.